A controversial report by the Home Office's Extremism review has drawn backlash for linking classic British sitcoms to far-right activity. This is the report from the Daily Mail, controversial Home Office Extremism report written by a group that claimed liking that TV show on the BBC, The Thick of It, makes you far right. Now, the leaked document crafted by civil servants in the Prevent scheme has sparked outrage, suggesting that enjoying shows like The Thick of It signifies extremist tendencies. Critics calling for the dismissal of the Home Office staff responsible for the claims, particularly as the report also attempts to exploit concerns over grooming gangs for political gains. You and I would be in a lot of trouble as we both love this show.
Yeah, look, you know, Malcolm Tucker is is now some kind of you know, a Hitler character or Goebbels.
Can you understand why bureaucrats in the UK wouldn't like this show, though?
Oh, I could understand why they would hate this show. They've been, you know, and they probably hate Yes Prime Minister as well, or even though it might be a bit of a textbook for some of their behaviour. I mean, this really just speaks to, I guess, the bubble that some civil servants in the UK are in, and this is pretty common in government circles where...
Why do they love to ban everything? Like, why do they get in and feel like we have to protect you from yourself and from watching things? I mean, this is the BBC.
Yeah, look, this is just a behaviour of people who work inside government that seems to be incurable. There is a desire to control, and that's why, even in a liberal democracy, there is always this need to control. Now, how this is conflated...
Are we liberal democracies anymore, or are we simply social democracies that, particularly when you have a left-wing government in power, there is a tendency, we've seen it in Australia many, many times. I remember when Stephen Conroy, who was communications minister during the Gillard-Rudd years in Australia, was looking at banning types of pornography, where the government would decide what was okay and what wasn't okay. It was essentially defeated because the people do not want this overreach. Now, COVID came along and people were being banned off YouTube, cancelled if they questioned the vaccine. Do you think that that has led to, post-COVID, governments being able to step in a bit more and tell you what you can or can't watch?
Yeah, look, the whole COVID experience was a gigantic worldwide experiment in how citizens of so-called liberal democracies, how compliant they would be, and for the most part was actually pretty successful.
And voted some governments back in, and kicked others out.
Indeed, but you know, bureaucrats cannot help themselves but try and control the behaviour of the public. I mean, there's this whole scene or whole sphere of behavioural economics or nudging, and the UK is the home of it, where they try just to, you know, just try and change behaviour of people, sometimes for good, but you know, I think there's an ethical question there.
You and I are in our 40s, so we're not that old, but we're certainly older than people in their 20s and 30s, right? And something that I've found interesting, there's an article in the Australian newspaper today talking about how about 50% of young people say that they only vote because they don't want to get the fine. There are other surveys that say young people actually have a tendency to look towards communist policies and say, what's wrong with that? That makes sense. What do you think the reason for that is? Do you think it's because we're so far away from seeing the bad side of the Soviet Union? You and I were at the tail end of seeing that from a generation standpoint. Have we become soft? We get the governments we deserve. Do the next generation want a government that bans everything?
Oh, I think we've become ignorant. We've become ignorant about what happened during the 20th century. You know, a lot of people have heard about Hitler, but how many people can tell you that Stalin was responsible for the death of millions more, or Mao in China?
Yeah. With his 5-year plans that killed so many people because he tried to move away from the land into making things, and there's a crossover period which isn't great for eating.
Or even Pol Pot in Cambodia. We've forgotten the evils.
So what you think is that we're able to identify what far right extremism looks like, but never what far left extremism looks like?
I think there is a sense of looking at the extreme left through rose-coloured glasses, and that's part of, I guess, that's part of the political zeitgeist of today that you see on social media.